just left Crazy Bean Southern Beach Farms. Maple with Crazy Bean.
That's off plantation
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yet to get after the brewery, to the head.
Yeah, it was actually pretty cool. They had a little petting zoo and fish, so she was able to feed them. And she bought some vegetables for her mommy.
We got new glasses.
The
Florida Podcast Network, the voice of Florida.
Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. This is your captain speaking, Mean Gene. Mean Gene. The following will be a test of the ship's whistle, the sonar alarm, the cable alarm, and the atomic attack alarm.
And hello, everybody, and welcome to Beach Talk Radio. We are broadcasting live for the second time today. And today we are broadcasting live from Millenial Brewery in Fort Myers, downtown Fort Myers. Of course, you can watch us on Facebook, YouTube. You can listen to us on iHeartRadio. You can listen to us on our own app. You can download our app. It is free from the Apple App Store. Also on Spotify. On where else here? Where else are we broadcasting?
Spreaker?
Yeah, tell everybody where else. Where else are we broadcasting from?
Well, definitely Spreaker and anywhere you can get your podcasts.
Right.
Carrier pigeon,
Carrier pigeon.
smoke signals.
Also with us is David Butler.
Hello.
David, we're doing a little cross-pollination today.
Oh, please. Now that's 3 times.
David is also part of the Florida Podcast Network, and we're happy to have him on. And David, you have a podcast called the Florida Beer Blog Podcast or the Florida Beer Podcast.
Well,
Tell us about that.
What I did, I started the Florida Beer Blog. That was over 5 years ago, actually. And then I had no intention of podcast. I mean, even when I started the blog, I had no idea what a podcast was. I think for me and for pretty much everybody else, cereal sort of changed the game. It was like, oh,
right.
What is this thing?
Right.
Okay. So now all I do is listen to podcasts. But I didn't have any really intention to podcast. And then I did a beer review. Place up in Central Florida sent me one of their beers, and they had brewed it with a podcaster that lives in that area. And they had, as part of the review.
You got a belch?
Yeah, I really did. Thank you for calling that out.
I
I was trying to be nice about it.
Listen,
and
man, we're at a
you're just
beer place. Let it rip.
I guess that's goes with the territory of what you're doing, right? I mean, it's a side thing there.
I guess it happens. Carbonation and all that.
So where were we?
Yeah, so where were we? Okay, so I'm writing this beer review, and I always try to put this little stinger at the end of all my reviews, make it a little bit funny, and I mentioned, hey, maybe I'll do a podcast. And then I had a lot of readers or people that at least followed me on social media. It's like, I don't have a whole lot of time to read, but if you did a podcast,
That would be
I
great.
would totally listen to it. And I'm like, oh, yeah, sure.
Right.
And I kind of threw something together, and the first 5 episodes were awful. Just don't listen to them.
As always, they always are.
Oh,
For
they're
all of us.
horrible.
It's a little rough
They're
start.
horrible. But gradually I kind of got there, and I was starting to work, and it got really good. And actually it's funny, because I like podcasts, I was searching for Florida podcasts and Florida beer podcasts, of which there are a lot, but I found Jemmy's interview at Due South Brewing, kind of listened to her shows that way, and then she had a call for roaming reporter, so I'm like, I can
do that.
Well, not only I can do that, I mean, I can do that, that's easy, but I can also get people to come to the blog and listen to the podcast. And so I reached out to her, and
for people that don't know, in our local area, Jemmy runs the Florida Podcast Network along with Glenn, the Geek Hebert. Glenn runs the Horse Podcast Network.
Radio Network,
Horse
yeah.
Radio Network, sorry. And I know, I've known Glenn for so long, and I can't believe I got it wrong. And
what stinks about Glenn, because he's in Ocala, and they've got a great brewery in Ocala, Infinite Ale Works. One day I will drag him kicking and screaming there. And they've got a raspberry Hefeweizen that I think he would absolutely love because he hates beer, but he likes fruity drinks.
Ah,
I'm gonna get him there.
I didn't know
Glenn,
Glenn
I'm gonna
was-
get you there.
I didn't know Glenn was a fruity kind of guy. I didn't
Fruity
know that.
drink?
I'm sure he's the kind of guy
Purveyor.
who needs an umbrella in the drink,
Oh,
or else he
there
won't
you
drink
go.
it.
Nice. So you decide you're going to start the podcast, and how many episodes? How many episodes are you in now?
We just actually next week, because we release on Thursdays, next week will be 27, but we've got a lot of audio already recorded. We've got a lot of stuff that's already taken care of, and then a number of other plans and people that want to join in, and we may be getting a sponsor here in the next couple of weeks.
Sponsors are
which I'm
always
very
good.
happy
Sponsors are
about.
always good. Now, you do yours a little. You do yours a little differently. You see, we don't mind the interaction with the kids coming over and the whole thing, and you're trying to shoo the
This is-
kids away and all that. And it's very cute. By the way, we're at Millenial Brewery
Yes.
in.
Ashley, do you wanna say
Did I say that right?
Downtown Fort Myers.
Downtown Fort Myers. You can see the
Ish.
sign. Millennial Brewing Company, and Amber and Kyle are super cool. They're super nice. Kyle's
It's a very family-friendly, dog-friendly place.
right. Is it? Oh, I didn't know it was a dog-friendly place.
Dear, we were here not long ago,
I
and the
don't-
little dogs were running around. We
You've
talked
got
about
kids
it.
Here, you might as well let the
There's
dogs in.
that's right.
Yeah.
They're both
And
gonna
they
be on
have
the
a
floor
food
anyway.
truck. Today they have one, but they have lots of events where they have
Yeah.
tons of them.
We're going to talk to Kyle
Yeah.
in a little bit about all the different events that he's pulling off. So you're
I
quite.
want to ask a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you do this full time?
No, this is a hobby.
Okay. Okay.
This is a hobby. I just do it for love of the game.
For the love of beer?
And here's the thing. Here's what I always say to everybody. Beer has always been an underdog. Because if you think of wine, you've got this image in your head. It's probably very dark and swanky, and people are very nice.
And sophisticated. I
Exactly.
gotcha. I
And you
gotcha.
talk about liquors, and it's, kind of the after party. You've got this sort of Rat Pack, but you're wearing the
Marlboro
tuxedos, but
Man
it's like-
type of.
Not even that, but more like swanky, sort of uptown New York. You talk about beer, the first image in your head is probably going to look like Animal House. Because you think about it, for the past several decades, what we've been told beer is Spuds McKenzie and the Swedish Bikini Team.
Right.
But there's so much more to it. Beer is the oldest beverage in the world other than water. It predates human written language. And when language was started, when people started writing stuff down, a lot of the times they were recipes from and prayers to the goddesses of beer. And I do say goddesses because it was very female centric. Thank you very much.
I had to let one rip, man. Sorry.
How about you and I just do the interview?
Okay, we'll continue.
Perfect. Just
All
you
right.
and I. Just you and I.
Go ahead.
Where'd you learn? Where'd you learn all that stuff about beer, though? I mean, who
I didn't
takes the
date in high
time?
school.
Okay, all right. Well, neither did
No,
I, but I didn't.
It's out.
But I didn't study beer. What?
It's out there, and there's actually a bunch of really great books. And if you really want to jump down this rabbit hole, the rabbit hole is deep.
Be careful,
Very
dear.
deep.
Now you do your podcast a little differently. You record all your interviews.
I pre-record everything, and there's a lot of stuff that.
You edit out the burps and the belches and the kids running around and all that. You make it sound
pretty
professional.
much. Yeah, as professional as I can, and it's interesting to see exactly how professional and how difficult and deep this can go. Because people just see beer, and what you can really see is chemistry and biology and a lot of legal issues. A lot of legal issues.
What do you mean?
In the state of Florida, we have not had the best time getting a lot of stuff done. And there are still a lot of things that we cannot do in Florida that other states take for granted.
When you're saying we, you mean
Breweries
brewers?
brewers in the state of Florida. I'll give you an example. 5 years ago when I started the blog, if you kind of look behind at the bar, you will see those big brown glass jugs. Those are growlers. Those are 64-ounce growlers. Up until a couple years ago, those were illegal in the state of Florida. You could have a 32-ounce growler. That was legal. You could have a 128-ounce growler. That is a gallon of beer. That was legal, but a 64-ounce growler was illegal.
Is that because it was too much beer?
No, there was a gallon one was legal.
The
Are you
gallon one,
sitting
not a
here?
whole lot of people really drink,
Right.
but the problem with a lot of this is that there are certain people that are trying to make sure that businesses such as Millenial do not get the shelf space and do not get the visibility so that the other bigger players
gotcha.
can play.
Can continue.
And it's a lot of people that I talk to. You can homebrew for 10, 12 years, and that's perfectly fine. But once you get your first taste of building codes, that's something you're not prepared for.
So your hobby is beer, or writing about beer, learning about beer, drinking beer. You're drinking beer now. What kind of beer you got there?
This my field producer Steve got.
Oh,
this is
she
their
said the girls.
Clever Girl.
Yes, Clever Girl.
Yeah, which nice
You're not
little
going to spill
Jurassic
it on my
Park
brand new
reference.
equipment, though, right? I mean,
All right.
because that's brand spanking new. So be careful there.
It'd be a shame if something were to happen to it.
I know it would.
And so Clever Girl is an IPA.
Yes, it
Explain
is.
to us what the difference is between an IPA and something not IPA-ish.
There are two different kinds of beer. Only two. Ales and lagers. 80% of what you're going to find at a place like Millenial is going to be an ale, because the big difference is time. To ferment an ale only takes about 2 weeks. To ferment a lager takes about a month. Lager is a German word which means to store. So most of these are going to be ales. Now, when it comes to ales, there are a lot of different styles. You've got IPAs, you've got golden ales, porters, stouts, all those kinds of things. Most of those, let me backtrack a little bit. Beer is meant to be drunk fresh. It's not like wine where you age it and it sticks around for years and years and years. There are a couple of kinds of varieties that you can age, not a whole lot of them. The problem is, and this is the traditional story, and he's about to tell me that I'm horribly wrong on
come
everything.
on in. Cozy on up here.
The story
We're talking about
the story behind IPAs, why it's called an India Pale Ale, because the British.
Well, now we have
Can I finish my
Kyle,
story first?
one of the owners of Millenial Brewing. His lovely wife, Amber.
She's making
manning.
things happen.
She's manning
She's actually working.
the bar.
So British occupation of India. Obviously, they didn't have any breweries over in India. This is the traditional story that everybody loves to kind of shoot out there. But so they made the beer in England, shipped it over to India. It was horribly, horribly bad by the time they got there. So what they did was they put a whole lot of hops in there, overly hopped it. Hops were where you get the flavor from beer from, and it also acts as a natural preservative. So they overly hopped it, but it survived the trip. And, they would brew pale ales, but this one was a special one that's for India, so they call it an India Pale Ale.
Got it.
And this has kind of become...
Because bitter, disgusting beer is better than bad, nasty...
Yeah, I gotta
beer.
say,
That's the moral of that story.
Now, here's my question for you. Being in Fort Myers, which is not a traditionally beer-heavy community, do you get a lot of people that are like, I must have IPA? Because you go to Tampa or Jacksonville or something like that, and it's very much must have IPA, must have 17 on draft.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, you're right that this area is not nearly as
Careful now.
affluent when it comes to, that I think, honestly, it's just a matter of the saturation in the market. I don't think that there is the prevalence of breweries here that there is in areas like Tampa. And so when you have that, when you have 50 breweries in a fairly small
People
area,
get pretty well educated.
Yeah, well, they just end up at a lot of different places, and the difference between going to one place over and over and over again is you're really only exposed to their field of vision when it comes to beer, right? Like our beer is different than the other breweries in our area. And so if you only ever came here, you would only ever get exposed to our interpretation of craft beer, right? Whereas in an area like Tampa or Miami or Fort Lauderdale, where there's so many, you get to get exposed to 50 different interpretations of craft beer, of IPAs, of every style, so there's just a lot of variety there. And we just don't have that here yet. I think we're just behind the curve, like everything is.
But I'll tell you something, it's definitely growing because because I've been kind of playing with my Southwest Florida Ale Trail passport. I'll dig it out here in a few seconds. Plug.
Yes, I've heard about this.
It's amazing how many different kind of little styles are really starting to pop up. Like after this, we're going to go over to 8 Foot, And they love to just go crazy with their fermentation.
Oh yeah,
Just
Bone
going
Hook.
crazy with the
They do.
Oh,
fermentation.
no,
They really
trust
do.
me. Yeah, we can go nuts.
he is definitely one of the more creative brewers when it comes to just stepping
Fermenting?
outside. Over in Cape Coral, they did well. He's very experimental. I think is the best way to put it. It's and most
Yes.
most
Yeah.
breweries are more like, hey, let's try to like really nail the IPA,
The
our
traditional-
IPA,
right,
like
right.
the traditional style. Whereas his whole thing is let's try as many different things as we can. Let's mix it all up. Let's just really. But he understands it really well, which is really
Yeah.
cool. So
Is he
so
like
can
getting
control it.
ingredients from Peru, like tree bark from Peru, and that kind of
I think
experimental, or
it's less of the exotic ingredients.
Okay.
It's more about how he guides the process, the fermentation, the yeasts he uses, how he harvests his yeast. Dan could speak better to it because he knows Roger pretty well, and so he would be able to explain it a little bit.
are you guys like all in a little club and you?
Yeah, for the most part.
Kinda,
I mean,
yeah.
there's like any. Oh, sorry.
Hang on,
Hi.
Just put it
Speak
in
into
your
the
cheek.
mic.
right in your face.
In your
Into the
cheek.
mic. How about
Have you
like
ever
this?
done like
Is this it? Am I
tobacco
doing it
dip?
right?
Yeah,
That's where you
right.
do
Am I
it.
doing it right?
Is this okay? Is this okay?
My elbows, everybody.
Like anything, right? You meet people and you're drawn to certain people. So I think there are a couple little groupings of breweries that find themselves getting together more
Got
often
it.
than others. But yeah, that's how it is. You make friends and they talk all the time. With
Similar interests.
certain
Yeah.
other brewers. They're kind of tossing ideas around and asking for input and insight on different.
So it's
things,
more
so.
collaborative,
Absolutely, yeah. That's what it's
cooperation.
all about.
And do you feel that that's definitely necessary? Because Southwest Florida is really starting to grow. There's a lot of in Fort Myers. I mean, we're pretty close to several breweries, but it's still not as saturated
Not even
as
close.
Tampa, and nowhere near something like Denver or
Right.
Asheville or
Right.
Portland.
Right.
Do you think there's still a lot more collaboration?
I think that we need it. I think it's a critical element of the growth of craft beer in any region is how well do the breweries work together to build that awareness for
Right.
what craft beer is, why it's a good thing, why is it different, why is it unique, how can breweries help the other breweries promote
Right.
what they're doing and the beer that they're the whole thing works together. It's why Asheville is what it is. Asheville wouldn't be what it is if all of those breweries weren't working together, and they weren't on the same page, they weren't on the same team, all working to grow that, love for craft beer. And, I just don't think we don't have enough of it yet. Like there are, something like 18 breweries from Punta Gorda to Naples. That's decent, but that's a really big geography that we're
Right,
talking
right,
about
right,
there.
right,
You know what
There's
I mean?
18 breweries in downtown
There's-
St. Pete.
Exactly. There's 6 or 7 times that in the same geography up in Tampa.
Got it.
So we're not even close to saturation.
saturation
It's
level.
not even.
Mhm.
It's not even. Honestly, until Coastal Days opened, there weren't breweries in Southwest Florida that were closer than 3 miles apart.
Yeah.
That we became the two closest together because they opened within like a mile of us. But everybody else, every time they would go to look for a place, they were like trying to geographically keep themselves away from the other ones, right?
Mhm.
Whereas like in places like Asheville and even in Tampa,
They're all together.
once you get to that point, like we're kind of there now where there really isn't a big enough geography now where you could really separate yourself. So now, okay, where do we want to get together, right? How do we want to group ourselves? And I would love to see downtown Fort Myers become not Asheville. It won't ever get to that point, but I would love to see 6 or 8 or 10 breweries right down here. Because then you have a little bit of a people like that are really into craft beer could go to one place and walk from brewery to
Place to
brewery to
place.
brewery, right?
And use their passport.
Right, and use their Ale
So,
Trail
well, it's-
sponsored.
How does this work?
Well, do you want to talk about it? Do you want me to?
It's a passport. So the idea is that you take this around, right? So you go. You've got basically all these different stops.
And
right?
they
I only have
stamp
one.
it.
Every time you go to a new brewery, they
I want
stamp it.
Millennial on that right now
Okay, so
before
you
we
gotta
leave.
buy a beer. You buy a
Right,
beer
right.
and you get stamped, right? When you get to your ninth brewery, you get a glass, and it has all the brewery logos on it, which is pretty cool. And when you get to your 12th, you go on to the round 2. Now, round 2 is buy one, get one.
Oh, wow.
So now every place you go, you get a buy one, get one deal, right? Which is awesome. And a lot of times this is being done like with couples, you know.
Right.
They'll come in together, so they'll get there too. And then when you get through the whole second round,
If you're still standing.
yeah, well, this is like it's a year.
Oh,
so every
okay.
year they do it, you know. And
I didn't know if it was like in a weekend.
But when you get to your 9th BOGO, then you get the growler. So at the bottom there, you can see that.
Now, is that what size
32
growler?
Ounce,
Okay.
32 ounce. Again, it's got all the logos of the breweries that are
That's
participating.
cool. And those are free to get?
No, you buy those.
You buy those.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're all a little different. So each, there are passports up in Tampa and over on the other coast, and they're all different. Some are free, but they don't like. There's no. You don't get anything. You're just doing it to go around and do it.
A lot of it depends because there's some like the Treasure Coast, which is Martin, St. Lucie counties. That one's free. It is sponsored by the tourism boards.
Right.
I don't know if you get anything, but the oldest one, the one that I really liked, is Jacksonville.
Okay.
Which is Duval County, because there's so much there anyways. And you actually do get, I think, a shirt or something or whatnot to complete the passport.
Now, is there a craft brewing association or is there any collective?
There's a national brewers association. There's a state level brewers association. Locally speaking, in Southwest Florida, there is not a guild. It is something that we've talked about, like, we need one. We need a place where everybody can kind of get together without it being segmented, without it just being, Dan and his brewer buddies getting together, but everybody, all together, so that there's just, a
exchange of ideas.
Well, it's kind of a formal yet informal place where everybody can bring issues or questions or, to talk about craft beer in Southwest Florida, and what do we want it to look like?
Right.
Within whatever level of control we have over it, what do we want to do with it, and how do we want it to grow, and how do we want to promote it, and how do we and I think that there's a lot to be learned, right? There's a lot to be learned on the brewing side of things.
Speaking
there's a lot of
of
ideas.
that,
There's a lot to be learned on marketing, right, and how to promote yourself as a business, but also events that you're doing. There's a lot.
Very much so, and I think a lot of brewers don't really understand that because they'll come from an engineering background, or
that was my question. How do you become a brewer?
Background. Yeah. A lot of the times, like, how long were you home brewing? What kind of background did you come from? How long did you home brew? Because I know that you did. Because everybody did.
Well, Dan did, and so that's the thing. I actually came from sales and marketing. Right, so my background is in the business side of things,
and the drinking side of it.
Most breweries are not. You're absolutely right. The age-old tale of a brewery is a guy who loves making beer at home, gets better and better and better at it until his friends are constantly telling him how amazing his beer is, and then he goes, "All right, I want to go start a brewery." Right?
I don't ask the question of how did you get started brewing because I know the answer already.
Because it's always the same, right? Yeah. And so. That is, and the problem with that though is exactly what we were just talking about. Like that leaves a huge blind spot for a lot of brewery owners, and that is in how to run a good business, how to market, how to sell, how to, and so there's this little bit of a spot that they find themselves in. If they brew good beer, that is enough to stay open, right? That's enough to keep everything moving, to keep everything rolling. There's demand. There's people coming in. They want to try the new stuff, right? And you go and you go and you go. But to really be able to go
thrive
to go up, to be able to go past and get to that next level, you're going to need a lot more than that. And so that's where I think like that's a good example of where I think a guild would be key. Is we would be able to as more of a business person, marketing, sales type knowledge. Would be able to communicate that and help and educate and share. And whereas there's going to be guys that are like 20-year veteran brewers, right? And they're going to be able to share brewing knowledge and, help younger brewers, newer brewers
to
get better and refine their craft,
In terms of
do you see that in your when you're out doing your podcast? Do you
Sometimes.
see that sort of situation where you've got a really good brewer and brewery, but they are having trouble leveling up.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's
A lot
it's
of-
less of a problem right now because everything's been exploding so like quickly
Mm-hmm.
that it's been easy, I guess. And nothing's easy. Business is not easy, but it's been easier, I guess I could
what
say.
I've noticed is that the opposite is starting to become true, is that people have leveled up too fast and they either have to come down or, and I know you know who I'm talking about, they just go out of business altogether.
Yeah.
Wow.
That has started to happen.
Well, and that's what
We've gone too
why
far.
I think that you got to come back to there needs to be a solid foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens very commonly, so my background before this was in IT, okay, which is actually also a very common brewer background, unrelated to this, but
Beer and computers.
But what's interesting about it is that the idea of something, people wanting to go somewhere, right, and try something, and the idea of a business, like a segment growing and expanding and, you know, becoming what it is, works, but until you don't have a foundation. It works until you don't know how to market your business when people don't want to come
And scale
or
it.
are broke,
Mhm.
or, you know, there's just a lot there that we haven't, as a brewing community, everything's just been growth, and that isn't going to last.
No, not at all.
That is going to fall, and we've already started to see it, right? And it's going to be the places that the connection to the IT is, I remember distinctly, anytime you're working with an engineer, what they want is the biggest, the shiniest, the most like impressive. How can I do what I do better? How can I make what I make? How can I make more of it? How can I make it better? How can I make it right? And that means a lot of equipment and bigger equipment and nicer equipment, more expensive equipment. And that's where you were talking about, which is they get, their eyes get big and they're like, oh my God, I can go get this, 120 barrel fermenter. Look at this thing. It's the size of this building,
Well, let's talk a little bit about the stresses, because if you were to talk like 2-3 years ago, the expectation. Hi, how you doing? How are you? I'm Dave.
This
Nice
is
to
Dan
meet you.
Higby.
Nice to meet you.
He's our brewmaster.
Microphone right up to you.
This is Dave.
Oh, awesome. Hi,
Butler.
Dave.
Yeah, talk
Nice
into
to
the
meet
mic.
you.
Nice to meet you.
So the expectation about 2-3 years ago was you had to open with a distribution network in hand. You had to open with packaging that you're going to try and put on every store shelf you have to. And I've spoken to a lot of brewers that do that now. And if somebody were to come up and say, hey, I want to open up a brewery tomorrow, I need to distribute, right? The answer would be no.
No, right.
So do you feel, I guess, what is a new brewery? What would you tell them to do? What do you think the expectation is in the field now?
Oh, well, I mean, we actually probably were one of the first to turn that idea on its head, because one, we started out and we stumbled right out of the gate with all of the brewery side of things, right? And because of that, we realized like we weren't so keyed in on making as much beer as we could, but we realized how much more we would make on it when we sold it right here in the tap room. And so
There's no overhead.
that's what we have. Well, I mean, people don't understand this. The general public has no concept of the difference. The cost to make beer, everybody assumes it's very cheap, which it generally is, right? I mean, generally speaking, it is cheap to make beer. But what they don't understand is the difference between when I sell it here, right? And if I sell it at $6 a pint, and in a 6-barrel keg, I'm getting about 40 to 45 pints. So I'm getting about $200 to $250 a keg. Great. But when I sell that keg into distribution, I have to deal with a middleman. Actually, I have to deal with two middlemen. I have to deal with the distributor, and I have to deal with the bar that's going to sell it, because they want to make money too. Everybody wants to make money. So I'm actually doing 2 layers of people needing to add their markup onto it. And what that ends up being is I end up selling my beer to a distributor for less than $50 a keg. So 1/5 what I could make on it if I sold it here.
And then, of course, they're not going to treat your product as well as you treat your product.
Well,
Absolutely not.
and they don't know it. They don't know it either, right? They're not as educated, or they can't be. Most of these places are looking at between as low as 5 options for beer, but as many as 100 there's no way they can know everything that we know about our own beer, right? How would they? I don't know. Thoughts?
Well, let's switch a little bit and talk about how the community has sort of embraced you, because I've always been curious about that. And especially since next week is your Oktoberfest festival, I'm going to talk to you about your Martzen pretty soon, because you better have a good one.
Yeah.
And but the mayor is coming to do the keg tapping, which is the traditional Oktoberfest, obviously over in Munich.
Yep.
But how difficult was that to get here? How much has the community embraced you? How much is the, I guess, municipal government here been able to embrace you?
Oh, they're great, and we know a lot of those people, so it's a little bit easier, I think, for us because we had a lot of those connections. But the reality is that the mayor is awesome, Randy.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
He's a family friend. My wife was best friends with his daughter, so that was easy to do. But municipally speaking, we have to go through all the permitting and all that kind of stuff and all that. But what's great is that they support the hell out of us, and between them and the county, we're partnered with the Lee County Visitors and Convention Bureau, and they are a huge element of promotion for it. We have great partnerships with WGCU, NPR. They put commercials on the radio for us, and we donate back to them. We have a partnership with Fox 4, so we get commercials, and our community loves what we do, and everything that we do benefits the community. We take a portion of everything that we do, every big event that we do, the food festivals we do, Oktoberfest is our biggest one. A portion of the proceeds always goes back to charity.
And that's the Millennial Brewing Foundation?
The Millennial Fund, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that we host through Southwest Florida Community Foundation. Yep.
It's pretty awesome.
And sometimes it's direct. So sometimes we'll do benefits where there's a direct, we have a theme or a charity or a cause for a night. But anything that doesn't goes into the Millennial Fund. The Millennial Fund then gets dispersed. We do it biannually, so we do it twice a year. So we write a big check, and do a big presentation, and it's awesome.
Perfect.
But it's awesome. Having the mayor come and tap the first keg, he gets a firkin ready, and we do the whole big ceremony with the big mallet and everything. And what's great is Randy loves it. He's it's just different than the stuff that he normally does. Ribbon cuttings and shaking hands and kissing babies or whatever they say. It's something fun and different for him to do too. And so, all right, talk about the beer.
Yeah, I was
which beer? Which
How
beer?
many beers?
Okay, I guess, what do you have coming for Oktoberfest?
Well, I did all German beers. Oh, I tried to. Anyways, we did 2 Belgians. We have 2 lagers. I've got a Doppelbock coming. First Doppelbock we ever made. First 2 lagers we ever made. I did a Fest beer, which is really good. We tried that last night. It's really good.
Let's go back to the lagering. How did you
problem.
do you have lagering equipment here?
We don't have any lagering tanks, but we still have a glycol tanks that we can run it on.
Perfect.
There are lager tanks that actually have the release valve on top. They're really fancy. Maybe one day, but no, we do it all right in our tanks.
It's perfect. And
so what were give her the full list of styles that you brewed.
So we got the Fest beer.
This was the first time. So we're about 3 years old, and this is the first time. You got to hold it up.
Eat the microphone. Eat the microphone.
You see my eye.
This is the first time we've been able to mobilize a large quantity of very specifically brewed, and they're not just peel off a keg and treat it with something. These are specifically designed styles that he did
all
for
German malts.
Oktoberfest, so that it's very authentic, right? Because it's just more fun that way. It's just more interesting and exciting when you can have some of the styles that you never see, right? And that people don't have an opportunity to try very often. And we've made full batches of these. So go ahead. Tell them about the list.
7 beers. So I have our original Meritzen, which we have the same thing as last year. I made I think I made with 1 batch of this time. We have the Fest beer, which is it's like a Helles lager kind of. It's really nice. It's really good.
You're talking my language right now.
The Doppelbock we made is 8.7%. It's really good, really smooth and chocolatey.
Nice.
So I made a Hefeweizen, new Hefeweizen, Dunkelweizen.
I was just about to ask, you have a Dunkel on the way, because the Dunkelweizen, nobody in the state of Florida makes on a regular basis. Every so often, Three Daughters does it seasonally, and I've had a couple of other people that have sort of touched on it. A Dunkelweizen. Okay, so quick German, because everybody's sort of looking at me strangely. Actually, no, I've talked enough. Dunkelweizen, go.
Dunkelweizen it's basically like a dark wheat beer. It's a Hefeweizen, but then you use dark malts with it too. So it's just a roof.
The internet. The internet. Oh yeah. How much of your ingredient purchasing do you do online?
All of it. Sometimes I call too.
I mean, they come from malt clearinghouses basically that they source it all, they process it all, and then we order from them. Generally, there's like one or two that we do.
They're not like in Peru picking it.
I mean, somebody is. They source it all and bring it in. So.
But that's why I repeated the question, because thank you.
Why don't you come back in?
Yeah, just come back in, and I'm gonna bring
Steve.
Steve. Hey.
No, it's okay. I'm talking too much.
Okay, so in terms of Southwest Florida, because people always love to say, "Oh, it's still new, it's still new." What styles of beer do you usually like to focus on here? What can you generally find on a trip to Millenial? And then what's the stuff that you're raring to go, but just need to teach Fort Myers a little bit more before you can release it?
I like to do everything. And there's no beer style that I won't try or do something with. I am not against mixing weird things in beers too. I like doing it all. Well, I have a gazpacho beer up there.
I saw that, and
tastes
I
like
love
tomato.
gazpacho.
So what? A gazpacho beer?
Yeah, it's a tomato wheat beer.
I'm a huge fan of coffee porters, so I definitely want to try that. The Cinnamon Toast Crunch just has to happen, but where's the gazpacho beer?
It's on the left.
Gazpacho.
Oh, it was on the left.
Oh no, we just ran out.
It
just
was
sold it all.
on the left.
You
when
hold
I
them down,
got
I'll beat them
here.
up. And you did a mojito wheat ale. It's funny, actually, one of my favorite styles is a cream ale.
No, it's just kombucha.
And I actually brewed a mojito cream ale in Miami.
Yeah.
Dry hopped it with 40 pounds of fresh mint. Ooh.
So I have to say, being from upstate New York,
Where from?
Oneonta,
Whoa.
where there's
I'm from Pulaski.
Get out!
That's where I'm
salmon
from.
fishing.
Yeah.
I was born in Buffalo.
Yeah.
See.
Awesome.
And Jenny Cream Ale
Oh, yeah.
was
Oh,
the
yeah,
thing
Tennessee.
of.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
There's still a big thing up there.
It is. They
Yeah,
had it. They
they're
had
huge.
it at World of Beers. I almost fell off my seat.
But here's the thing, and that's what I actually prefer to go to when I go to a new brewery. It's like, where's your cream ale? Where's your Kolsch? Where's your blonde ale? Because, no offense, I'm pretty sure that she's going to agree with me on this one. If you brew an IPA, you can just throw hops and stuff into it if the batch goes bad to hide the fact that it's a bad batch. If it's a porter, you can throw stuff into it to hide the fact that it's a bad batch. There's no room to hide on a cream ale. There's no room to hide in a Kolsch. If it's bad, it's going to be bad, and everybody's going to know it.
I haven't brewed a cream ale yet. We were talking about one.
What?
Yeah, I just never have.
Collaboration.
Yeah.
3-week Beach Talk Radio
There you
Millennial Brewing
go.
collaboration.
We've got an idea for one. We were going to do one in the Christmas time, do like a peppermint cream ale, I think would be neat.
Send me a crawler.
Yeah, we can do something like that.
like a Christmas beer.
Yes.
Then. Yes.
I love themed beers. I think they're fun.
I theme anything. I'm
And
not
it's
We're
awesome.
going to go for
I-
a cranberry cream ale.
I like cranberries too. We do a cranberry goza that is pretty popular.
Nice. That sounds amazing.
What
Yeah,
about
I
the
love-
white chocolate beer?
I've seen white chocolate
Yeah.
stouts.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Actually, right now, over on the other coast, Playa Linda Brewing, their Bricks project is having their 3-year anniversary. Hi, Playa Linda. They've got a white chocolate stout on nitro.
Is there
Yeah.
there an ingredient that just would never mix well in a
I have
beer?
seen oysters. I have seen andouille sausage. Unfortunately, I cannot see gazpacho.
I tried adobo sauce. That does not work at
Really?
all. I tried to make a mole stout. Was one of my first weird things, and all the ingredients mixed well, and then I tried the adobo, and it just made like this weird, greasy
kind of sort of thing.
It turned into like this. It just tastes like something you would season chicken with or something. It was gross.
Chicken beer. No,
Chicken beer. Nice.
if you
Okay,
can grab
so
him
we've
from
got-
afar.
Yeah, my field producer Steve is here. Hi, Steve. So we've got the Oktoberfest beers. We've got everything. One thing that I actually found kind of interesting is that with the food trucks that you have coming in, it seems like you have a focus on making sure that at least one food truck is vegan.
Oh yeah, they've always been big on
Really?
vegan here. We're a vegan brewery too, so I don't
the
do
vegan
anything.
thing is huge.
I don't do anything with honey or lactose. No lactose.
Interesting.
So, yeah. it's kind of sad sometimes. I have some really neat ideas that I would love to use this in, but it's okay. It's fine.
Interesting. And
No,
that's
you've got that coming up, the vegan food truck. That's one of the big promotions down here, right?
Used to be the vegan food truck rally was really big for us for a while, but I think that's more. It's like the normal food truck now.
Right. Yeah, it's getting more mainstream.
Mhm.
It's
Absolutely.
definitely getting more mainstream. I'm seeing all sorts of. Get him over here.
No, it's just my field producer's here, and we're here with my daughter and his son. And now that's actually something that I really want to talk about because, especially with me and all the places that I go to, I'm a big fan of family-friendly breweries, which I have seen a lot of here in Southwest Florida. Palm City Brewing had one of the greatest family-friendly experiences that I've ever had. You have a family-friendly day on Sunday.
Yeah.
You'll actually do bounce houses and things. And then there are other places here in the city and here in the state where 21 and up is persona non grata. You are family-friendly,
Yes.
and do you see anything negative, or what was the decision and so on?
I mean, we all have young families. I've got 2 young kids. Kyle's got 2 young kids. I think everyone that works for us has, like some, kids that come around with them. So I brew in the summertime. My kids come in and play while I brew. So, and
Do you ever try to help them help you brew?
No. Too much scalding hot water.
Yeah, that's a good point.
crazy
But
things.
this kind of goes back to it. If it wasn't alcohol, brewing would be such a great way to teach STEM.
Mhm.
Because there's so much
Absolutely.
engineering, there's so much science, and people don't realize that they just see the alcohol
Yeah.
and they see, oh, it's a bar. I would never bring my daughter to a bar, but she's been to 3 daughters. She's been going to 3 daughters every year since before she was born. To the owners have basically said, when she's 21, she's got a job because she's been with
awesome.
us.
Well, and it's
Yeah.
an opportunity to show adults acting responsibly. We were in here a couple of weeks ago, and there was someone in here with an infant. I mean, it was there was games going on. There's cornhole here. There's all sorts of pinball, which is one of my favorite. There's a lot of board games.
Have you ever had a problem with an unruly patron?
Not personally, no. I haven't really. I mean, we've had some interesting people come through, but nothing out of the ordinary. I don't think we've had a fight in here.
Well,
at
I mean,
all.
this is the first time that these two are here, so anything could happen. But
I mean, there have been plenty of like.
I'm good. If you want to jump in, yeah, sure. Okay, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, nothing else.
If you're going up to the bar, can I get one of those cinnamon toast brown ales?
Or you better go back where's the gazpacho for him? Because he's losing it
Oh,
right
it's
now.
fine.
There
It
are 2
happens.
kegs of it back there, but I think they're called for. The guy, I actually worked with a gentleman by the name of Jimmy Salimi. Have you ever met
Okay.
him?
Mm-mm.
He started with, I think, Nice Guys. He does a lot of stuff now. He's a really amazing cocktail mixer, and he and I worked on that beer together. That's why
Nice.
it tastes as crazy as it does.
Do you do with wine? Do you do beer pairings with food
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, we've
yeah.
had events, that were I think we had chocolate and wine or beer pairings and stuff.
Do you ever do any donut and beer pairings? Because I've seen those
Should.
too.
I am in on that.
I made a donut amber beer a few months ago.
Nice.
So, and that was
Donut amber beer.
Once again, I'm not going to try
Oh,
it.
no.
You have left me broken hearted.
I do lots of beers. I do my pumpkin beer. I have a pumpkin beer coming out for Oktoberfest. It's a pumpkin ESB. Everyone, most
An
people,
ESB?
yeah.
Really?
Okay, sorry.
It's
Extra
way-
special bitter.
Okay.
And usually, if it's a pumpkin beer, it's a
It's
porter
a stout
or a brown ale.
Yeah.
Okay.
But actually, because I was telling them, I just left Crazy Dingo. They are brewing a pumpkin wheat ale right now.
See? Kid friendly. So how is it that it's an extra bitter? I see. That's just I
don't
like
even know
the
the history
Belgian
behind it.
triples, and I'm at the.
There's so
other
much
end
out there.
of-
And in fact, I'm hoping that the Big Storm in Cape Coral still has their Kentucky Common on.
They're
Because
what?
I love Kentucky Commons. And nobody
I
makes
thought
them.
you were going to say Kentucky Fried Chicken.
No,
beer.
Kentucky Common, it tastes, it's beer, but it tastes like an Arnold Palmer.
Oh.
A true Kentucky Common. There's just so much out there. There's so many things that we have forgotten about. Orlando, there's a brewery that is also a Lutheran church, and their signature beer is a style Einbecker that Martin Luther's wife used to brew. Like Martin Luther, the Lutheran church. Yeah, there's so much out there, and people don't really understand that.
No, not even.
And that's got to be difficult for you to have to sit there and describe, here's what a Goza is. Here's what an ESB is. Here's what this and this and this is. It's good. You're going to like it, but it's not Bud Light.
I think that's probably the most fun. I think that's the most fun thing about my job is
Really?
I come for the Oktoberfest every year, right? I don't work it. I just go out in the crowd and talk to people and find out what they like and see if they like what they're drinking and see if there's any ideas that they want next year or anything like that. I just think it's cool. And I think one of the coolest parts about this job and specifically here is we want to educate everyone. It's cool to come in and learn something and enjoy yourself. I don't know.
Well, if somebody comes in, and I am sure that you have had this, and says, hey, I want a Bud Light, where does the conversation go from there?
I don't know. I'm not a bartender. I wouldn't know how to answer that one. I think they would be in the wrong.
Well, we have this, which is similar to that. Would you like a little taste?
I don't knock anyone for what they drink.
Yeah.
I won't tell someone get out.
You know
because
what?
You like
So,
Bud Light.
do you do like Lay's potato chip? Every once in a while, they'll do a contest where they have people write in for the next crazy Lay's potato chip thing. They should do that for beer.
That's a great idea.
You know what I'm saying?
I've actually seen breweries that have contests, put in these recipes or put in an idea. And if yours is the one that is chosen, you get to brew with our brewmaster. You get to see what it's like.
I can't even
8
cook,
hours,
so I'm not getting back there.
Shoveling out grain.
Yeah. Processing those 800 pounds of strawberries. Or something like that. Yeah.
Well, dear, you hopping back in here? Hop. Nobody can hear you.
We're waiting for Kyle to come back so we can interview Amber, but she's the only one at the bar right now. So I want to make sure that you got all your questions answered for the show.
I've got a couple of other questions in terms of the Fort Myers area. Has it really started to grow? Have you started to see more and more people becoming accepting and searching out of craft beer? And because this is such a heavily snowbird area, do you see it ebb and flow with the seasons?
We used to a lot. In the very beginning, it would be really dead in the off season when they left. But now, I don't know. I feel like this past year was one of the better years that we had with that season. And this year, it's like we didn't even have an off season. It just we're still doing the same thing like nothing happened. So
excellent.
But there's huge. I think for us, I don't think we ever got a lot of the snowbirds. We would get some, but I think it was the family members that were visiting the snowbirds in Florida. They're coming down to visit and stay in Florida for a month. That they would come in. They would seek out the breweries. So I don't know. Yes. I guess.
Nice. Let's talk a little bit about your system because it's sort of hidden behind some tall pallets and your Cool Boy, which I know goes out to festivals all the live long day. What do you have in the back that you're playing with?
Right now, I'm finishing up all my Oktoberfest beers. I've got my Berliners coming out. I think I'm finishing that tomorrow. My pumpkins coming out right afterwards. And I did a lot of fun little offshoots with those. I've got some ideas for the Berliner that are very strange. I don't really want to tell anyone.
Okay, that's fine.
But the Dunkelweizen, for instance, I have 16 gallons of the Dunkelweizen set aside and it's sitting on 10 pounds of bananas. So we'll see how that goes. I
hate you so much because I'm not leaving with any of this.
Yeah. Well, you got to come back next weekend. It'll all be here.
I have other things going on next weekend. Wine. Give it
You
to
gotta
Ed.
try it.
Ed'll
The
email
Doppelbock.
it to me.
That Doppelbock is magical. I love that beer.
Barrel aging. Do you have a barrel aging program? And especially since I've noticed that there are multiple distilleries in the Fort Myers area, which I think a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah.
Have you been able to partner with them as well?
Those are my only barrels right now.
There we go.
I've
Where'd they
got,
come from?
I want to say the local Live. What's the name of it? Cow bottom.
Be either Drum Circle or Wicked Dolphin.
Not
I know
Wicked
those
Dolphin.
two are.
I thought there was one other one. They're all bourbon barrels.
Oh, okay.
I have 2 stouts going in them right now, 2 Imperials that I brewed with marshmallows and hazelnuts. So
Interesting.
I hope they turn out good.
Interesting adjuncts that I've never heard of combined together.
Oh,
Usually
yeah.
it's one
No.
of the two. And
Marshmallows go well with everything in beer. I'm telling you, I put marshmallows in a sour. I did peaches and marshmallows. I did like a peach and cream sour. It was awesome. It gives it gives it like a weird vanilla mouthfeel. It's awesome. I love it.
And do sours move here?
Yes. Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah. We only usually ever have one on at a time, but yeah, there's always someone coming in looking for a sour.
Interesting. Do you have a lot of people that just come in looking for a lager? I've seen that a lot. It's like, what lagers do you have? Well, what kind? But
Yeah, I would say our biggest seller in beer is anything that I make that's amber. So anything that is kind of close to like a Yingling or something like that. Those all go
Gotcha.
really fast.
so is that cinnamon toast brown ale moving?
Oh yeah, that's on the last keg right now, actually.
I gotta get some. That
That turned out really good.
Nice. Kind of taking a look at the list.
What else have I
And
done?
I'm assuming we got some big Jurassic Park fans.
Oh yeah. Clever Girl's our flagship. We've had that
Really?
since the beginning. I've changed
Interesting.
it a lot since the beginning.
Uh-huh.
With especially specifically the water profile has changed a lot. The amount of hops I use has changed. But
Do you get good water here in Southwest Florida?
no?
Do you have, no.
Well, we do RO. We have
Okay.
We have 1,000-gallon RO in the back.
Nice.
So yeah, I would not brew without that. I'm pretty new to brewing with specific water profiles. I know
Uh-huh.
I'm very new to it, and if I didn't have RO, I wouldn't even attempt that. Not
Gotcha.
yet. It's way easier.
Nice. Do you have, other than Clever Girl, do you have a lot of flagships? Do you have a lot of cores, or do you just generally play?
We have
And let's see what happened.
we have about 5 to 8 cores, I think, that kind of float around. The
Okay.
Clever Girl is definitely a core. Triple D, our triple's a core, and that's the one we're probably going to put out in distro if we do go into distro.
Okay. Who's the hockey fan?
No, that's Mighty Ducks. We're just Mighty Ducks fans.
Oh, come on. You're so close to the Everblades.
I know.
And then you just go up a couple hours and it's the Lightning.
I moved away from the snow, and now I just don't. I have no love for it anymore. Another one was recently changed. That's a Brute Kolsch. And
Really?
I
Because it's just in light ale, but I'm a huge fan of the Kolsch, and the Brute is just exploding in craft beer. so.
that tastes. It's not much. It's a Kolsch because you can't really call it anything else, right? It's made with German malt, and it uses German noble hops, and that's what it would be. But I use an enzyme in it to drop it down. It ferments out to like 1.000, like nothing.
Nice.
And then I hop it. I whirlpool it with ginger and lemon peel.
Really?
So kind of reminds me of like a ginger ale.
Interesting. I would have to. That sounds amazing. Ed, did
My
you want to
favorite
jump in?
I'm just learning as you go.
Just
So
learning.
if I don't have any questions about beer, other than if you had Blue Moon on tap, I'd be a lot happier.
You don't need Blue Moon. You're
We
Millennial
have some
Brewing,
Belgians
you've got
come
other
in.
stuff.
I've always steered clear from those the orange peel coriander Belgians. I don't know why. It's not that I don't like them. I
There's
just
so
don't.
many wit beers out there, though.
Yeah.
So many.
But yeah, other than that, like we always have a shandy on during summertime because they sell like
Okay.
crazy.
Yeah. And is the root beer
Coffee
made
and
in?
Contemplation is our one of our main ones. So
Nice. And the root beer is made in house?
No.
No. Gotcha.
that's Eli's.
Oh yeah. Now I see the logo.
We talked about that, putting together sassafras and stuff.
Anything else, David? You want to?
I'm pretty good.
good?
In terms of where can people find you on social media? Give more information.
Me, I'm not. I'm
Millennial.
Millennial.
Not you.
Oh
yes. What's your phone number? Are you dating? What kind of girls do you like?
No, Millennial. I believe is on Facebook.
Yeah, they're on Facebook,
Instagram.
Instagram, all that stuff. So if Kyle was here, but he took the kids out and got them some ice and some other stuff. So anything else you guys want to talk about? Otherwise, we'll wrap it up.
Where's my beer?
All right.
I don't know. You ordered it a while ago, didn't you?
We want to let everybody know that we will be back Saturday at our regular location at Pete's Timeout on Fort Myers Beach. But thanks for joining us for our extra broadcast at Millenial Brewing Company in downtown Fort Myers. And we will talk to you again next weekend.